Dumb Husky and His White Cat Shizun is a BL novel. This is an audiobook made by fans for other fans. Disclaimer: descriptive violence and triggers for sensitive content. If you don't like it, don't listen. Thank you. Remember, subscribe and click the bell to stay updated on all the new releases. Enjoy. Chapter 41. This venerable one kisses the wrong person again. He could see the layout of the stone room at a glance. 3 sides were walls, and one side was a fence with a red spell. There was only a simple stone bed covered with grass in the room. He was lying on the stone bed, his hands and feet were bound by iron chains. The shackles clanked as he moved. What was worse was that he realized that his ling power seemed to be restrained by some kind of spell and could not be used at all. While he was feeling anxious, he suddenly heard a creak. He turned his head and saw 2 dragon men enter. "You!" Ran immediately shouted angrily, "You bunch of lunatics! What is going on? What do you want? Where are my martial brothers? Go Chen Shanggong. Hey! I'm asking you a question." However, no matter how much Ran yelled, the 2 dragon men turned a deaf ear to him. The 2 of them carried a piece of red fox fur. From the way it was rolled up, it seemed like there was a person wrapped inside. They expressionlessly placed the person wrapped in red fox fur on the stone bed. Ran said, "You 2 little loaches. What are you arguing about?" One of the dragon men finally spoke up. His voice was very disdainful. "You are the essence of the wood spirit, it's not worth it to you." The other dragon man sneered. "It's not worth it to you, it's obviously taking advantage of you." Ran was about to vomit blood. "What do you want? Why did you lock me up here? What did you bring to this bed?" "What did we bring?" one of the dragon men countered. "Naturally it's someone you like," the other dragon man said. Ran's fingertips turned cold. He was extremely shocked. "She may." The dragon man did not deny it. He sneered. "The night of spring is short. Since you are fated to be together, I'll let you have a good time tonight. Once you're done, you'll know why the exalted goddess made such an arrangement." Then, he left. The room was dead silent. Ran's hands and feet were bound, and he could not move. The passage of time became very blurry. It was difficult for him to know how much time had passed. Even if he struggled with all his might and his wrists and ankles were bruised, he could not break free from the restraints. Panting slightly, he turned his head to look at the fox fur of a living person wrapped around him. The fur was tightly bound, and that person was covered from head to toe. Only a strand of ink-black hair could be seen from the edge of the quilt. Ran's heart was stirred and flustered at the same time. Although he did not know why the pervert from Gochen Palace had made such an arrangement, if he could really have a good time with Shimei because of this. Thinking of this, he suddenly could not think any further. It seemed that any more evil thoughts would be blasphemy to that beautiful person. Ran stared at the ceiling of the stone chamber. His breathing was heavy and suffocating, as if there was a heavy weight pressing down on his chest. He had obviously wanted to do something for a long time, but now that he had the chance to do it, he felt uncomfortable from head to toe and felt uncomfortable. As his thoughts wandered, the initial dirty excitement slowly subsided and he gradually calmed down. Gochen Palace had made such an arrangement, so he was doomed. If it was not good for him, then it was fine. But if it implicated Shimei for no reason, how could he endure it? Moreover, this matter was forced by others, and Shimei himself was not willing. Although he, Ran, was a scumbag, but, towards the person he liked, he wanted to protect, not hurt. Therefore, no matter what kind of evil method Gochen Palace used, when Shi Mei woke up, he would definitely not bully him. After a long period of silence, he suddenly felt a slight movement of someone beside him. The person beside him had finally woken up. Amo Ran hurriedly turned his head to look, and said hoarsely, "She." Before he could finish his sentence, he forcefully spun his tongue and swallowed it back. His Adam's apple violently rolled for a while before spitting out the second half of the word. Zun. Shizun. Just a moment ago, little immortal Lord Mo, who had been stubborn and determined in his eyes, felt as if his lofty position had collapsed when he saw the face in the fox fur. The defensive line that he had built with great difficulty in his chest was flattened and turned into pieces in an instant, cracking and shattering. What about protecting? What about not bullying? What about not tarnishing the other party? One slap in the face was louder than the next. Amo Ran's face turned green. He was now certain that the people living under Jin Chengchi, led by Gochen Palace, were all a bunch of fucking blind. He liked Chu Wanning? No. Whether it was the fox or the dragon man, he really didn't know how they had determined that his Amo Ran's sweetheart was Chu Wanning. Could it be that they had seen through the fact that he had slept with Chu Wanning before and still wanted to sleep with him? That was ridiculous. Could it be that liking someone means liking them in bed? Little immortal Lord Mo roared in his heart with righteousness. However, he couldn't utter a single word. He could only stare blankly at Chu Wanning as he slowly opened his pair of phoenix eyes. Damn it! He seemed to have heard a click, as if something in his mind had snapped. After a while, something was burning out of the ruins in his heart. It emitted a fishy smell, black ash, and distorted heat. So hot. It was as if an evil dragon spitting out scorching flames had suddenly swam across the deathly silent night. It was as if surging magma and surging flames had suddenly erupted from a silent abyss. All the rationality and calmness that he had promised had turned into an indistinguishable charcoal shadow in this fiery light. He didn't expect it to be like this. Chu Wanning's usually sharp eyes were now filled with a hazy sleepiness. He looked lazy and in a trance. It was as if it had rained in the bamboo forest. The sound of thousands of leaves was moist. He slowly sat up. From the expression on his face, he seemed to have been controlled by something. The red fox fur coat slid down from his shoulders. He wasn't wearing anything, revealing a large area of tight skin. His shoulders and back were covered in traces of love. How could it be like this? Amo Ran felt as if he was going crazy. Who did this? Who was it that did such a thing to his master? He was Chu Wanning. Every inch of his bones were trembling, and his blood was roaring with hatred. That was Chu Wanning. Who did this to him? It was his. Amo Ran hated him so much that he didn't even consider that Chu Wanning didn't belong to him in this life. He didn't belong to anyone else. In his eyes, he only saw Chu Wanning's sturdy and well-proportioned body, as well as the bruises on that familiar body. Shizun. Chu Wanning, however, didn't seem to hear his hoarse and distorted voice. Instead, he lowered his eyelashes, like a puppet being manipulated by someone. He leaned over and caressed Amo Ran's face. They stared at each other for a moment. Then, he closed his eyes and leaned closer. His watery lips covered Amo Ran's lips. It was rare for Chu Wanning to take the initiative to kiss him. With just one touch, his entire body was charred. In front of his eyes was a wild and dazzling color, and his heart was beating frantically. Perhaps Chu Wanning had caught a cold and his body was cold, but the intensity of their lips and teeth intertwined was not inferior. Ran was still in extreme pain and jealousy because he had been humiliated. But in his jealousy and anger, he was seduced by this man whom he was more familiar with. The pain and stimulation were even more intense. After the kiss, Ran breathed heavily and opened his eyes. He saw that Chu Wanning's eyes were bright and moist, and his skin was flushed red. He couldn't help but feel a rush of blood. He couldn't help but want to hold Chu Wanning's face. However, he was bound by shackles and couldn't move his hands and feet. Chu Wanning glanced at the iron shackles and didn't say anything. Instead, he knelt down and sat up, intending to mount Chu Wanning. Ran swallowed and looked at Chu Wanning. He saw that between Chu Wanning's long and slender legs, there was a sticky substance that even men could understand, slowly dripping down along with his movements. His eyes immediately turned red, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He sat up abruptly, but was pulled back by the iron shackles and fell heavily onto the bed. Who is it? Ran couldn't hold it in any longer. He was like a trapped beast. Who is it that did this to you? I'll kill him. I'll kill him. I don't care if he's Go Chen Shanggong or the Emperor of Heaven, whether he's a god or a devil or a ghost or a Buddha, he's Ta Shixiong. Chu Wanning is one of Ta Shixiong's people. Even though he was trapped in this body of his youth, he was still the emperor of the human realm. Who was it that touched his go to hell with Shizun, who touched his people? He's Ran, he's one of Ta Shixiong's people. Ran. Someone seemed to be calling out to him. But his eyes and ears were blinded by his endless rage. He seemed to hear it, but he also seemed to not hear it. Ran. Just kill them all. Intolerable, what the hell? Why did he lose his spiritual power? Why was he unable to summon ghosts? He was about to lose his mind. Great humiliation, deep hatred, great humiliation, deep hatred. Who would dare to touch Chu Wanning? In his past life, when he was with Chu Wanning, even if someone looked at Nightwalker Yuheng, he could pluck out that person's eyes and make that person eat them himself. At night, he would hug Chu Wanning and fuck them until both of them were exhausted. But in this life, Ran. Who was it that was calling out to him, and why was he pestering him so much? But this voice was so familiar. He seemed to have heard it before. That wasn't right. It was as if he could hear it everywhere. The owner of this voice seemed to have accompanied him for countless years. Ran, wake up. Are you crazy? What are you doing? Ran suddenly opened his eyes. He followed the direction of the voice and saw a person dressed in a white robe that was whiter than snow outside the secret cell. His eyes were sharp and his expression was anxious. His eyebrows were filled with hostility, and he was ready to kill. Who else could it be but Chu Wanning? Shizun! Ran exclaimed. The person on his bed was. He turned his head and saw that face that was right in front of him was enough to scare him to death. How could this be Chu Wanning? It was clearly a demonic creature with a human body and a fox face. Speaking of a demonic creature, this death wasn't just for decoration. The thing that was lying on his body, the thing that he had passionately kissed earlier, was truly a dead thing. The fox demon's eyes were hollow, and its skin was pale. There was no longer a trace of life in it. Ran recalled that he had kissed such a thing under the bewitchment of a deceptive spell. He almost vomited it out. His expression was terrible to the extreme. What the hell is going on here? Chu Wanning was outside the cell with the cursed talisman between his two fingers. When he saw that the dead fox demon was completely motionless, he knew that Chu Wanning had pulled the talisman out of the fox corpse's body in the nick of time. He was ruthless, and a large amount of black-red blood suddenly gushed out of the talisman paper. Following an indistinct scream, the talisman paper was instantly reduced to ashes. Chu Wanning opened his palm, and the scattered ashes slowly gathered in his hand, gradually condensing into a jet-black chess piece. He stared at the chess piece, and his expression turned ugly. "It really is the Zhenlong chessboard," Chu Wanning murmured. He suddenly raised his eyes and stared at Mo Ran. "When you were sick, what did Shi Mingjing cook for you the most? Speak." Ah. Ah. Mo Ran had suffered too many shocks in a short period of time. At this moment, his mind was in a mess. He said, Why are you asking this?" Chu Wanning said sternly, "Speak quickly." "Wanton." Only then did Chu Wanning's expression ease a little, but his eyebrows did not relax at all. He said, "Mo Ran, listen up. That Go Chen Shanggong is a fake, not the real god of weapons. This person is good at using illusions, and he has mastered one of the three great forbidden techniques, the Zhenlong chessboard. Therefore, I have to be careful. I'm afraid that you are also an illusion created by him." Mo Ran was on the verge of tears. "If I were an illusion, why would I be locked up?" Chu Wanning said. "I'll save you right now." Mo Ran nodded repeatedly, and then asked, "By the way, Shizun, where are Shi Mei and Shui Meng?" "Just like you, they were drugged in the wine and were locked up elsewhere." Seeing Mo Ran's expression, Chu Wanning added, "You don't have to worry, they're all fine. However, it's very dangerous here, so I told them to wait outside. Once you get out, you'll be able to see them." As for the Zhenlong chessboard, Chu Wanning didn't explain any further, nor did he need to. It was one of the three most powerful and infamous forbidden techniques in the cultivation world. As the name implied, the Zhenlong chessboard referred to using other people as chess pieces to set up a trap for oneself. The caster usually didn't personally appear on the battlefield. Instead, he would hide in the dark and lay down a chessboard in front of him. He would control the bodies of the chess pieces, causing the living, dead, ghosts, beasts, and birds of the world to work for him. Living creatures that were hit by the Zhenlong chessboard would be loyal to the caster until death. If they were dead, they would fight to the death. However, depending on the caster's magic power, the things that could be controlled would also be different. The easiest way was to control a person or an animal that had just died, followed by a person that had been dead for a long time, and then a living beast or bird. When one's cultivation reached the highest level, one would be able to control a living person. In this world, there were very few people who could train the Zhenlong chessboard to the extreme. However, in the era when Mo Ran was crowned emperor, he had already trained the Zhenlong chessboard to the level of perfection. That year, in the battle of life and death with Chu Wanning, he had laid down 100-foot-long scroll, splashed ink into a chessboard, and cast beans into a soldier. In that battle, hundreds of thousands of chess pieces fell at the same time. As a result, feathers covered the sky, golden crows sank to the west, flood dragons broke through the water, and the sea was overturned. Mo Ran had summoned an endless number of beasts and birds, and controlled an endless army of living people. Even in the Azura Hell, such a scene was rare to see. This fox corpse was obviously controlled through the Zhenlong chessboard, but other than the Zhenlong chessboard, there was another layer of magic, the concealment technique. According to legend, after the ancestor of the nine-tailed fox clan died, the fur he left behind was made into 49 pieces of fox skin magic treasures of different sizes. As long as one took a person's blood and dripped it onto the fox skin, and then covered something with the fur, even if it was wrapped around a piece of rotten wood, one would be able to turn into the person's appearance. This fox corpse was wrapped around this kind of magic treasure, but its changes could only be seen in the eyes of the owner of the blood. In the eyes of others, it would still be the same, and would not change in the slightest. Rescuing Amoran didn't take too much effort, and after successfully getting him out, Chu Wanning had more or less explained the cause of the matter to him. Amoran's greatest confusion was, "Shizun, how do you know that Gochen Shanggong is a fake?" End of the chapter. Stay tuned for more BL.